All right, I'm back out here at this military section, this military memorial. We are at Oak Hill Cemetery of Noonan. We stopped here a minute ago and saw William Thomas Overby. The name struck out to me, and let me tell you his story. The story was he was captured by the Union and offered his life in return for information on the location of his particular group, and he refused, and he was killed because he wouldn't give up the information of his fellow soldier. And here he is buried here, and that is why he was awarded the Confederate Medal of Honor. Interesting. Let's go find some more stuff. Through these old gates. So, we found what we were looking for. This is the stone. A pretty famous fisherman, Tom Mann, the fisherman, the bass master. Born September 16th, 1932, Big Mark's same birthday. Died February 11th of 2005. Tom Mann. And Tom Mann was a veteran. Very interesting. Our kids met Tom Mann. We're going to try to go down the road a little bit. He was very famous here in Eufaula. Hey everybody, we are out here at Tranquil Cemetery. There used to be a church here, Tranquil Methodist Church, and then it changed to Turin, and the congregation moved to the church that we were just at, that I showed you the video of. We are out here looking for members of the family that would have stayed at the Page House. It's Walker, Harris, Gaines. Shell. George William and Lena Johnson Shell. We'll look them up. Oh, here's a page. Jimmy Page Shell and J.B. Shell Jr. So there is a page, her maiden name. So we're getting a little close. We have found a page in the middle of nowhere. We are literally in the middle of a forest here near Sonoy, between Sonoy and Turin, Georgia. Hyde, Andrew and Fanny Hyde. Lots of hunters. There is a park near here, Hunter Complex. Here's a 6-year-old son Oh, a son of Fanny Hyde. Hey everybody, we're back out here in a further out section of what is still Oak Hill Cemetery. You can see the Noonan water tower in the distance there. Like I said, this is 60 acres. And we were looking for Lamar Potts, so we checked on the phone and we looked at section 27. And I looked over here, and indeed, I see the name Potts. Now, I believe he's also buried here with his brother, J.H. Potts, who was his only deputy. And interestingly enough, in the movie Murder in Coweta County, we know that Johnny Cash played Lamar Potts. Andy Griffith played John Wallace. June Carter Cash played Mahalie Lancaster. We are looking for Lamar Potts. Julia Potts Short. Aha, here we are. Catherine Shields Potts, this was his wife. And here we have the very modest grave of Lamar Potts. Albert Lamar Potts. Now, interestingly enough, on the internet it says 1900, and on his stone it says 1901. I don't know, I'll have to look into that one for you guys, but this is the final resting place. A very somber, quiet grave in section 27 of Oak Hill Cemetery. We have found Albert Lamar Potts. He was known for his role in bringing to justice John Wallace of Meriwether County. He was also known for, at the time he retired in Coweta County after some 30 years as sheriff here in Coweta County, no major crimes, no felonies had been left unsolved at the time that he retired. We also know that the current jail is named for Lamar Potts. Now, some people will tell you that he was involved in moonshine, as John Wallace was, and that could be true. I can't tell you one way or another, but here is his wife's grave. But I can tell you that most reports say that he was a good guy, and I really haven't heard or read anything to the contrary. So here we have the grave, the final resting place of Sheriff Albert Lamar Potts, who brought to justice John Wallace, who crossed the county lines from Meriwether into Coweta County, and he brought to justice John Wallace, who was the first white, rich landowner in Georgia, executed for murder, found guilty of murder, right here at the Noonan Courthouse, based mainly on the testimony of two African-American farm tenants. Now, in those days, the African Americans were not even really allowed in court, let alone to testify against a rich white landowner. So this was the first time, and it changed the course of Georgia history. All right, so we just kind of found this really randomly, but I want to add this in. I'll probably add this in with our pioneer days. But this is William McIntosh's grave. He was born in 1775 and he died in 1825. He did serve as a Tennessee volunteer under Andrew Jackson in the War of 1812. But of course, we know that he signed away. I'm going to go see the sign about him. He signed away all of his native people's land, and he was killed for it. He was killed by Upper Creeks and is buried here, the site of his home. This is the home of Chief McIntosh. He was killed by his own people because he gave up their native land. When he went to fight with the Tennessee Volunteers, Andrew Jackson promised them they would keep their homeland forever. And there he is. He was very instrumental in the removal of the native creek, and he is buried here. The stones seem to go pretty deep into the woods. There's no telling how many are completely unmarked. There's an older one. I was a little nervous walking around. Lizzie. Can't read the rest of that one. There are also just some random stones and a pretty good sunken in spot back there. Quite a few sunken in spots. Unfortunately, I get the feeling that we are walking on graves that are perhaps not marked, and that is quite an indention. Stones way out there. There's stones way out there. Oh my. They are really scattered about. Here's one I can see the top of. And then there's some stones right here. But I believe this, the looks of it, are footstones. That's the thing. Frank Arnold. Oh, born in the 1800s. So this is an older stone. It's pretty much buried. We don't want to disturb that. We can see stones all out in the woods. And the reason we came to this particular church, it has an interest not only in the history, but this is where we believe the finale for all of Stranger Things was likely filmed, and we'll walk around the church in a minute, see what we can see there. It was 1922 to 1980. William L.D. Now, I don't know what these markers are. I've never seen this before. GPRSinc.com. So we'll look and see what that is. Is it someone who comes out to mark the graves? Look at all the flags, Mark.
Yep.
Did they mark graves before? Oh my, they're all marked with this. We should look up what that is. GPRSinc.com. Hey everyone, we found it. We made it to Caney Head Methodist Church. I'll show you a better picture of the front in just a minute. I want to tell you a little bit about Mahalie Lancaster. She called herself an oracle of the ages. She was born with what was called a caul over her face in October. I believe, I'll double check the date, in the 1800s. And this was said that if you were born with a caul over your face, that you had second sight. And she indeed could tell the future. She told people the lucky numbers for a game called the Bug Game, an early lottery type of game in the 1920s and 30s and into the 1940s. She told fortunes, and people would come to see her from all types of states and all around. It is said that the neighbors would just get a kick out of coming over to see all the license tags. People from Florida, Texas, Illinois, Arkansas, all around the country came to get their fortunes told from Mahalie Lancaster. Now, we're out here at the gravesite. One of the interesting things I want to show you before we find Mahalie's grave, which I believe is right over there, we are going to talk about the fact that one of the things she did, she predicted things in threes. She would tell you, you would find a lost article or a husband or a family member or cows, in John Wallace's case, but it was always in threes. 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and things would happen in threes. And an interesting thing out here at the cemetery is the threes. Number threes are interesting to me. And this gentleman right here, Albert Chapman, Mark found it, 1933. He was born in 1966. He passed away. Mahalie would find that fascinating, I'm sure, because he lived 33 years. Now we're going to go on over here. There's Mark. He has found her grave. Now, like I said, Mahalie called herself an oracle of the ages. She would tell fortunes in regard to lucky lottery numbers. She found a diamond ring for a early silent motion picture movie star, and she told her to go back to her home in the shadows and find the ring, and sure enough, the woman did return and find that ring. I'm gonna read you that story a little later on of what Mahaley found. I want to show you this angle of the church. Caney Head United Methodist Church. We're near Franklin, Georgia. And we have found Mahaley. Mark found Mahaley. Amanda Mahaley Lancaster was born October 18th, 1875, and she died November 22nd, 1955. I'll replace these flowers, Mahaley. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just want to show folks. It said, her stone reads, "For neither did his brethren believe in him." St. John 17, chapter 5th verse. Now, some people thought that was wrong for Mahaley to compare herself to the Lord, to Jesus, but I believe it was just a saying that she pulled. She studied the scriptures.
Where's your dollar and a dime?
I've got my dollar and a dime. If you came to Mahaley to get your fortune told, the payment was $1 and a dime. $1 for the dogs and a dime for her. That's what she told everyone. So I'm going to be right here. Miss Mahaley, we have been reading and studying so much about you. You were a fascinating woman. Here is $1 for you and a dime for your dogs. And we hope that you accept that generously and give us some good fortune. She is buried right next to her mother, Harriet. Mahaley was the third of 11 children born to Harriet Lancaster. And here is another, a brother. Excuse me, her father, sorry. And he was a Freemason. Now, Mahaley had a bigger stone out here previously, but one of the stories goes that a young man, his parents had their fortune told by Mahaley on their honeymoon, not far from here at a resort where they were staying, and she was telling people's fortunes. She told the young couple that they would have a son and that he would grow up to be a teacher. Well, that son did grow up to be a teacher, and he brought his students out here one day to tell them the stories he'd heard about Mahaley. When they were here, and the stone was taller than, this is not her original stone at all. The stone was taller. He was talking to his students about her, and a lightning storm came, and it struck the stone, and the stone split, and then was replaced by this smaller stone. That was the boy who had his fortune really predicted by Mahaley before he was even, right when his parents had first met and were getting married. So that was an interesting story. You'll also notice that Mahaley is interred in a solid piece of cement. This is because people have come before and tried to desecrate her grave. People are funny that way. I know that there was some mention of a scientific group, a school, that had offered the Lancaster family $1 million for Mahaley's brain after she died. Well, of course, they refused, but there are people that rumored that she is here, but her brain is not. I hope that's not true. I hope that that's not true for Miss Mahaley. Take a moment to look, take a moment to just kind of feel the place. That's what I'd like to do. Ghost hunters and other paranormal folks have come out here before. Now, Mahaley is quite the character. She did tell people a lot of fortunes. She, of course, became extremely famous for a couple of her stories. One was the story of a group of teenagers that came to visit her one afternoon, just sort of on a lark, as they said, and she told the fortune of every teenager there except for one young girl. And one of the boys who had visited Mahaley before, as they were leaving, he said, "Ms. Lancaster, why won't you tell her fortune? Why won't you tell her future? And she told the boy simply, she has no future. And that evening, that group of teenagers was in a car crash, and that girl was killed. She indeed had no fortune, and Mahaley forecasted that on the afternoon of her death. So there's lots of cool stories about Mahaley. Of course, she became very famous for testifying about, against John Wallace. But John Wallace had visited her before to get lucky numbers for the bug game, or to see how he was going to do when it came about moonshining. Was he going to get in trouble, or were everything going to go well? And she would answer his questions, and then he arrived one day and asked her about 2 missing cows. And that was sort of the pinnacle point of the times that they met and crossed paths. They crossed paths many times, but that one was the one that sparked the whole trial in regards to Wilson Turner. When Mahaley told John Wallace that a man named Turner had his 2 cows that were missing, that he'd stolen them, she also told John Wallace, don't you go doing anything to him, don't you go killing him. Well, of course, we know that John Wallace did kill Wilson Turner, and we'll talk about how that whole storyline played out in the video as well. But we're focusing on Mahaley here because we are on her gravesite. We want to pay her homage. She did tell him about Wilson Turner, of course, and then he came back to her later and asked her if he was going to get in trouble for it. And little did he know that Mahaley would end up showing up in court at his trial. And when he first saw her coming, he thought that meant she was testifying in his defense. But she was not. She was testifying for the prosecution. She was telling the prosecution and the court everything she knew about their previous encounters. So this is a great little location. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm going to take a quick walk and show you the rest of the church. But before we do, we'll give one last homage to Amanda Mahaley Lancaster. She was quite the character. She wore kooky hats, crazy outfits. She had one eye, forgot to mention that. A lot of people wondered, how did she lose her eye? Well, some people say that she was walking on a road and a car zoomed up along the highway and a stone flew out and hit her in the eye, and it became infected, and the surgeons had to remove her eye. No one ever really found out what happened to her eye. But in the eye socket, sometimes she'd just pop a little marble in there. Sometimes she'd take it out and polish it and pop it back in. It made her quite the character. Now we're going to walk this. Thank you for Mahaley for the visit. Even after death, she has been affecting people. We certainly are fascinated with her life, and we hope that you're enjoying the details. And we're going to leave her now to continue to rest with her family. One last shot. November 22nd. We keep arriving at places at interesting times. Today's the 20th. So in 2 more days, it would be the anniversary of her death. These are relatives. It's a graveyard because there's a church. A cemetery stands alone. We've talked about that before. But she would come here on Decoration Day, and that was the day when everyone came to clean up the church. So you can just imagine her walking out here, speaking with people. She would even tell their fortunes randomly, sometimes not charging you a penny. But again, like I said, they did charge. She charged $1 a dime. We left it there. You know, better safe than sorry. See you soon.